If you look at this photo, you might see some resemblance. This is a picture of me in the early 90s. It turns out I'm the first person to sell anything over the internet. We didn't have the word e-commerce yet because we hadn't invented it, but I did it, and it's because I sold a caffeine t-shirt out of my dorm room to 14 countries to pay for my tuition. But you might also notice a couple other things about this. I was a little bit fat, as in I weighed about 280 in that photo. I hit 300 pounds at the height of my weight. So I lost 100 pounds. I also lost $6 million during the dot-com time, which can be a little bit stressful. I also lost my brain. Right as my career in tech was going up, I started having a hard time remembering things. I didn't have enough energy. I was kicking ass. I got my MBA at Wharton, working full-time at a startup that we sold for $600 million, but it took every ounce of willpower and energy to put one foot in front of the other. It was not a fun experience. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And then I got this. Can't read it, it's from a doctor. Let me zoom in on that for you. I'm 29. Increased risk for stroke or myocardial infarction. So they're like, you're gonna die like you're old. Your brain works like you're old. Oh, and by the way, I also had arthritis since I was 14. So I'm kind of old when I'm young, and it sucks. So I went and saw Dr. Amen, who's a member of Genius Network. That was my brain, and here's what they called me. An interesting referral. Oh man. So what do you do when you're faced with something like this? You've already made and lost a fortune, and you're a little stressed, and your body and your biology will not do what you want them to do. Well, I decided yoga. Became an advanced yoga master. If you were at the party last night, I'd put my ankle behind my head just to prove a point. It was not a pretty sight. I went to South America, did ayahuasca with a shaman way before it was cool. I shaved my head, went to Tibet, learned meditation from the masters. In fact, this photo was taken on Mount Kailash. It was on that very day that I had my first cup of yak butter tea that was the inspiration of Bulletproof Coffee. But that wasn't all I did to upgrade my brain and whatnot. I went to this cave and I fasted for 4 days, led by a shaman. That's actually called First Woman. It's shaped like a certain anatomical part, and this is where Adam and Eve emerged from that local tribe. So that was a very holy place to go meditate for a while. And I finally hooked my brain up to electrodes, and I listened to the sound of my own brainwaves. Radical storytelling, understanding what's the story that I told myself inside my head, what do I believe versus what's real, and how do I get control of my own brain? Because after all, my body wasn't doing what I wanted. I got that to work kind of, but my thoughts weren't. You're stressed all the time. And today, I actually run a neuroscience institute on the side because I needed the world's best brain mechanics for me. And in Seattle, this is something that I do. 11 weeks of my life have been invested in this, which is the most important thing I've ever done. Here's what I learned, and here's what's in it for you. After I did all this stuff, I'm going to read a few sentences to you. This is where I ended up after that incredible, dense path. Every day, think as you wake up, I'm fortunate to be alive. I have a precious human life. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use all of my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others. I'm going to think kind thoughts towards others. I am not going to get angry and think badly about others. And I'm going to benefit others as much as I can. That's what I learned from that incredibly long path. And now you're going to learn exactly what's going on inside your head that prevents you from having those thoughts all the time. Sound useful? All right, let's do that. I can't believe I can fit this in 10 minutes. This is cool. If you were to, say, design a species to live forever, which we are designed, you really only need 3 behaviors for this species. The first behavior, well, make sure that you eat everything. It's an F word, feed, right? Eat everything. And you recognize this in a big Labrador. I call this a Labrador brain. Labrador retriever walks down the street. Oh, a gutter taco? I think I'll eat that. You'll eat everything. It's okay, you're wired that way so the species doesn't starve. The next thing that you'll do is fear, another F word. And that one is run away from or kill anything that might be scary. Pretty cool stuff, right? Well, the third F word required to keep the species alive is one of Joe's favorite words. The other F word, come on. Right? You gotta reproduce the species. Fornicate, thank you. You can always count on Sean to take it up a level. That wasn't where I was going, but we'll deal with that F word. So here's what you can do. You look at how much energy you have every single day. There is something you can do that turns off the voice in your head that says, eat the cookie, right? You put the cookie in front of you, and the voice says, eat the cookie, and you say no, and the voice says, eat the cookie, and you say no. And eventually, you say, I'll just have half. And then you say, I'm a bad person because I failed, because I didn't have enough willpower. It's all a lie. That's the story you told yourself. The real story is that willpower is finite. You can run out of it. It is a function of how much energy you have and a function of how many decisions you make. What if you could turn off the voice in your head that said, eat the cookie? So when someone puts the cookie in front of you, you're like, oh, a cookie. And blissful silence. You've probably experienced that because you had Bulletproof Coffee this morning. The whole point there isn't to buy my Bulletproof Coffee. The whole point there is that when you eat the right kinds of fat, and you don't eat foods that cause cravings, it frees up one of the only three things that you are biologically wired to do all the time, which is think about food all the time. And if you don't waste your energy thinking about food all the time, might you waste that energy building another company, playing with your kids, or binge watching your favorite Netflix? It doesn't really matter. It's free energy, and you can do anything you want with it. But it's unacceptable to have food cravings. And one of the first things I learned is that if I have a food craving, it's my fault. And if you have one, it's your fault too. And the whole basis, or the whole teaching behind that, is in the Bulletproof Diet book. And I'm not telling you to buy the book, because at the end of this, I'll send you one for free. Because this is the most important knowledge that I can offer you. One of the three things that gets in your way all the time can be turned off by what you put in your food, which is more plants and more of the right kinds of fat, and less toxins. You get that right, and the toxins are a little bit different based on your genetics. You will not yell at your employees as much. Your middle finger will actually shrink as the muscles atrophy because you don't want to use it as much as you did before. I think I lost a pound in just my middle finger. It's that big of a deal. And one of the things that happens, that other F word we talked about, fear, when you run out of energy because your blood sugar dipped, you know what happens? Your body is afraid you're gonna die because there's not enough blood sugar to run away from tigers. So it triggers adrenaline and cortisol and all the fear and stress hormones. So when you don't control your hunger and your cravings, what happens? Your fight or flight response gets kicked off, and then you sit in the meeting and you yell at people and you say things you're ashamed of, and you go back to these words, which, by the way, I completely copied from the Dalai Lama. And you say, I'm not going to get angry and think badly about others. But you know what? You get me a little bit hypoglycemic, a little bit hypoglycemic, hangry. I might think bad thoughts about others, and I don't like myself when I do that, and I don't think you like yourself either. So that's the number one thing. The number two thing is that fear response inside of you is a story that you tell yourself. From all of this neurofeedback I've done, here's what happens. Something happens around you. Your nervous system picks up on what happens, the actual thing that happens. It responds with an emotion that may or may not include fear. And then about, 300 milliseconds later, you think about it and you tell yourself a story. For instance, you lean on a hot stove, you don't go, it smells like bacon, I guess I should move my hand, right? Something moves your hand, and then you say, whew, good thing I moved my hand. That's bullshit. You did not move your hand. Another consciousness within you that is far faster than you and far dumber than you, meaning to keep you alive, moved your hand. And that is the part of you that gets triggered when you're hungry, and it's the part of you that feels like you are going to die when your business is at risk. It's the part of you that John talked about when someone goes after your baby, your company. It's a visceral response, and that response can be absolutely reprogrammed using 20 or 40 years of meditation in a cave, which is the way we used to do it, or you can do it with neurofeedback much, much more quickly.
You are the doctor of the future, and I'm going to show you 6 ways that you can activate your inner healer. This is going to be powerful information that you're going to be able to apply immediately. Did you know that you can reverse aging on demand? Did you know that you can rebalance your hormones in minutes, not in months? And did you know you can heal every cell, organ, tissue, and system in your body simultaneously. In fact, that's the only way that you can heal them, is in unison all together. I know it sounds hard to believe, but health doesn't have to be complicated, overwhelming, or expensive to get rapid, safe, and permanent results. And I know it sounds crazy because we've heard it takes forever, costs lots of money, and you must take tons of supplements. Today, I'm going to show you how to get even better results in less time while improving your health like never before. And pay attention, because what you'll learn today is going to be powerful. And you'll learn how Faisal lost 19 pounds and no longer has bloating or hot flashes in 6 weeks. She literally looks like her daughter in this picture because of the transformation that took place. You'll learn how Suk lost 66.2 pounds, got off of his diabetes and blood pressure medications in 10 weeks. You'll learn how Michael stopped taking 10 Tylenol per day, lost 58.4 pounds, all in 10 weeks, all without supplements, lab testing, or intense exercise. As Tim mentioned, my name's Sachin Patel, is my lovely wife, Deepa, and the reason I live each and every day to the fullest is my son, Devin, who's 11 now. So my goal is to leave a better future for him and all of your children and grandchildren. My story starts in 1997 when my girlfriend at the time's friend called me skinny. And looking back, I was actually at a healthy weight, but these words scarred me and led me on this downward spiral of just doing whatever it took to gain as much weight as I possibly could so I'd never be called heavy. I went from 140 pounds or so all the way up to 185 pounds. And my goal was to get to 200 because I never wanted to hear those words ever again. At age 32, after I got married, you can see a picture of me here. I was about 185 pounds. And now this is me at age 44, totally transformed. And in fact, based on recent blood work I had, I've reversed my biological age by about 4 years. So this is entirely possible for me and therefore entirely possible for you. I'm going to share this formula today.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
Functional medicine, positive mindset, wearable technology, and self-love truly transformed my life, and that's why I'm going to share this with you today. I've written a book called Perfect Practice. I have a podcast by the same name. I'm an award-winning clinician. We run an award-winning business. We've built orphanages, schools, and food banks. And I'm also an award-winning father and soon to be the CEO of Canada's first publicly traded longevity company. Now, in the next few minutes, I want to show you a revolutionary approach that we've spent the last 3 years developing. So pay close attention, because this literally could change everything for you, but more importantly, it could change everything for someone that you love and deeply care about. I'm going to share with you the 6 rights to activate your inner healer so that you can create sustainable health practices, rapid measurable changes, and a living legacy of health. Most importantly, I'm going to show you how you can become your own best doctor. This is the $1 trillion secret that Tim mentioned. And all this so that you can finally get to the root cause of what ails you and reverse any condition on demand. You can reduce the risk of hospitalization from COVID. Right now, the top 5 reasons for COVID hospitalization are 100% preventable and 100% reversible using what I'm going to share with you today. And you can better leverage your time, money, and efforts, and easily, depending on how old you are, add 1 to 25 quality years to your life. A fun fact is, if you lived 1% longer, that'd be about 280 days. And I know we all know someone who lived an extra 280 days so they could be around a little bit longer. So we can give them one more hug or one more kiss or have one more conversation. And at some point, that will be us. And I want to show you how to extend your life in a proven way starting today. So I know you're probably thinking, I've tried everything. Being healthy is hard. I've already spent so much money and nothing seems to work. Getting healthy takes years. I don't want to take any more supplements. You should see the garbage bags that people bring into our office. I've spent thousands on testing. I don't want to starve myself. I don't want to take drugs or hormone replacement medications. And my body's been like this for years and it won't budge. You know, we worked with over 5,000 clients and we hear almost all of these things on a weekly basis. But most importantly, people think being healthy is expensive. And maybe this might be hitting home for some of you, but Some of you might be in a position where you might think that one more program and my spouse is going to kill me. So I want you to suspend all your limiting beliefs and hear me out. If you're ready to become the most productive, creative, energetic, and healthy version of you, then let's go through these 6 rights. But sit back and enjoy. I've actually created an extended guide of what I'm going to share with you that goes into more detail, so you don't have to write anything down. Number 1, mind right. So why do we need to get our mind right? Well, first of all, our mind is a 5-dimensional printer. It prints our reality. Our most persistent thoughts become our reality. Where the mind goes, the body follows. And we all know that thoughts become things. Some tips to get your mind right. 1 is to find your community. So being in Genius Network helps us shift every single month that we connect into the right mindset. You want to optimize your environment because we know, as Benjamin Hardy would say, that willpower doesn't work. And we have to be sold on ourselves before we can be sold on anything else. I want you to stop watching the news, especially right now. Mindfulness, meditation, and spend more time in nature. These are ways that you can optimize your mindset. Number 2, I want you to breathe right. This is very overlooked, low-hanging fruit. So why breathe right? Well, first of all, it normalizes your blood pressure, which is the number 1 cause of a hospitalization right now. Number 2, it reduces the stress response. So we can actually modulate the stress response, not just based on how we think, but actually how we breathe. It also improves lymphatic drainage. Almost all disease starts in the body's sewage system, which is the lymphatic system. It also enhances creativity. Believe it or not, breathing correctly improves creativity. You will also wake up more refreshed. And a few tips to breathe right. 1 is you want to have proper oral posture. Your tongue should be in the correct position in your mouth in order to optimize your breathing. 3/4 of the tongue should be at the roof of the mouth with the tip of the tongue just behind the front teeth, gently positioned. Your tongue is actually a postural muscle. It will relax the muscles in the back of your neck and shoulders because it actually holds the front of your head up. So that positioning of the tongue will force you to breathe through your nose. Nasal breathing has many countless benefits, which you'll learn more about in the videos I'm going to send to you. And one way to ensure that you breathe through the nose is by taping your mouth closed at night. This might sound strange or might sound really weird, but trust me, it works. It can be transformational. We have so much data and evidence to prove this. Number 3 is I want you to light right. And what does that mean? Why should we light right? Well, we get deeper sleep when we expose ourselves to the right type of lighting. It lowers our cortisol. Believe it or not, artificial lighting at certain color temperatures will raise our cortisol. It increases dopamine when we get sunlight, especially in the morning. We improve our immune health by things like vitamin D production and also by enhancing melatonin production. It also helps us balance our hormones. And I'll show you in just a moment how to do that. So here's a diagram that shows the rhythm of melatonin and cortisol. So many of us think of melatonin and we think of a sleep hormone. In fact, melatonin is your most important immunomodulating hormone. So if you want to improve immune function, you want to increase melatonin production, not just take it, but you want to improve production. And the way we improve melatonin production is by lowering cortisol, but also by exposing ourselves to complete or as much darkness as possible. And natural lighting, such as candle lighting, red lighting, or even campfires will not decrease melatonin production. Artificial lighting and overhead lighting will decrease it by up to 40%. Cortisol is another hormone that's driven by the rising and setting of the sun. Cortisol is highest in the morning. And so getting sunlight in the morning is so important to jumpstart our body. And sunlight in the morning also increases dopamine. So you want to get morning sunlight, turn off overhead lighting in the evening after the sun goes down and use uplighting instead. Use red bulbs in the evening and wear blue and green blockers after sunset. And you could definitely connect with Dave Asprey on this. Number 4 is move right. Why move right? Better mood, improves lymphatic drainage, enhances creativity, better balance, fewer injuries, and a deeper appreciation of our physical body. We were meant to move. You can ask Whitney Jones how well we were meant to move. Joyful movement is what you want to do. You want to pick activities that you love doing. This morning, my wife and I went on a beautiful bike ride because I love this time of year. And we just spent time in nature, breathing in the fresh air, soaking in the sun. You want to stack activities with being in the sun, and you want to move throughout the day. So move every time we have a break, get up and move around and tune into your breath. You're only as good as your breath. Just like when you exercise, you're only as good as your form. However, when you move, you're only really as good as how well you're breathing. So make sure you're breathing correctly. Number 5, sleep right. Why sleep right? Better cognition, creativity, fewer cravings, less belly fat, more energy, better detox, and deeper healing. When you don't sleep right, you will feel hungry all the time and you will never feel satisfied, thanks to two hormones, ghrelin and leptin. So sleeping well will curb your appetites and you'll feel more satiated. Sleep tips. So first of all, know your chronotype. You can check out Michael Bruce's book, The Power of When. Be consistent with your sleep and wake cycle. No light or food 2 to 3 hours before bed. You could even incorporate the lights out challenge. No lighting after the sun goes down, and watch your sleep transform in just a day or two. Sleep in complete darkness in a cool room, and get an Aura ring to track your actual sleep metrics so you can see if your most powerful healing tool, sleeping, is actually giving you the healing powers that it needs. Number 6, really quick, digest, better immune health, improve nutrient absorption, less need for supplements, less chronic inflammation. You'll eat the right amount and no more stinky farts. Digestion tips: choose your food, your feelings, and the timing of your meals appropriately. Chew each bite, chill out, cherish each meal, check your stool daily and annually. This will be transformational for your overall health. So in review, the 6 rights: mind right, breathe right, light right, move right, sleep right, digest right, so you can age like this beautiful human being that we all love and care about, Mr. Joel Weldon. And you could be skiing and you could be doing all the fun things that life has to offer at any age. I promise you that these 6 rights will never steer you wrong, and they are available to you in this very moment and from this very moment forward. These are life skills that will last you a lifetime. My gift to you, and Eunice and the team will share this with you, is a guide that goes deeper into each of these topics so that you can dive in and learn more and share with your family. I invite you all to love yourself back to life. I love you, and here's to your highest, happiest, and wholest healing. Thank you.
As Doug said earlier, many people, spend their health creating their wealth. And then they have to spend their wealth trying to regain their health. What if we just valued health number 1? Hello, fellow Genius members, Genius Network members. We're so excited to be part of your family, your herd. I'm Jennifer Carroll.
And I'm Jessica, and we are J&J. And we are going to talk to you guys today about how to live large and live long. So this is a room full of entrepreneurs. Now raise your hand if you live life go big or go home kind of way. Yeah, I kind of thought it was about everyone. Well, that was my dad's life motto. Just like you, my dad was a rock star entrepreneur. He lived large. And actually, according to this poster right here, entrepreneurs are the new rock stars. Just like you, my dad valued success at a very young age. Travelers, who loves to travel in this room? Yep, Dad loved to travel. Just like you, my dad loved his sports. He ran marathons, he wake surfed, and he cherished all 18 summers with his family. Just like you, my dad was a thought leader who wanted to make a difference. Dad lived to give, and actually for the past 20 years, we've been going down to Mexico building homes for homeless families in Mexico. Just like you, my dad loved his life. And he loved his wife, his playmate. Entrepreneurs, you guys take care of everything. You take care of your business, you take care of your staff, you take care of your family. But do you take that same care of your health? I ask you, do you value health as number 1? Because you know what? My dad didn't. My dad lived large, but he never went to the doctor. As you see right here, he's a 6'3", 220-pound guy. He worked out every single day, but he bragged about not going to the doctor. And I do believe that if he did go to the doctor, and if he actually got checked, and if he was actually proactive about his health, he would be in this room right here. And that he would actually be one of the 97% of men who survive prostate cancer if detected early. So yes, I encourage you, and I know you guys live large, but live long. My dad made his first millions in his 20s, but he made his first widow in her 40s.
You're probably asking yourself, what on earth could this grieving widow and her darling daughter share with you today that could be worth $250,000? It's an excellent question. But I have a question back for you. Do you want to be unstoppable? Do you want to go on and make $250,000 again and again, living our live large, live long philosophies? Yeah? Okay. Then imagine, if you will, you're not here at a Genius Network meeting. Sadly, you're on your deathbed, surrounded by your family and friends, your loved ones, and you're fighting for your last breath. And in that moment, I want to ask you, what would you do? How much would you pay for more time? How much would you pay for 250,000 more hours? That's 28 and a half more years. I know my Philip would have paid a lot more than $250,000. How much would you pay for more time? Time to scale up our businesses, scale up your businesses. Time to keep living large as entrepreneurs. Time to watch your son live out his dream. Time to walk your daughter down the aisle. Time to grow old with the person that you love. Like you, my Phil thought he was unstoppable. But at the age of 52, he was stopped by prostate cancer.
Look at Steve and I in Forbes magazine.
Bill Carroll is 25 years old, richest cheesecake.
Article on our marina. Dave and I in Flair magazine. Wayne Gretzky is with us. That's cool.
I know that footage is hard to watch. It's excruciating to remember. Now, you had a chance here today to meet my darling little mini-me daughter. But I also want you to know that I actually gave birth to a human truck. Yes, and as my husband was holding the screaming newborn, I'm panting. I said, "Is it a boy?" And he goes, it's a hockey player." And that's exactly what he became, a professional hockey player. 6'4", 220, missing teeth, power forward enforcer, professional hockey player. A couple months before Phil passed away, I went up to Canada to see Austin, and when I was up there, one of his coaches, Coach Jeff, comes up to me and he says to me, "I'm sorry, I hear your husband is really sick, and Austin says he's fighting for his life. Can I ask what he has?" I said, "Prostate cancer." He looked at me like, "I'm sorry, I thought everyone survived prostate cancer." I said, "Yeah, if you go to the doctor and you get checked early enough, you can be one of the 97% of men that survive this disease. But yeah, my husband wasn't that guy." By the way, Coach Jeff, how old are you? 48. You get checked regularly, right? "Oh no, look at me, I'm in great shape. I'm on the ice with the guys every day. I eat organic, I don't drink or smoke, and besides, I hate going to the doctor, and I don't need a doctor going there," if you know what I mean. Well, I watched this big burly Canadian hockey player, and he metamorphed into my Phil, standing there healthy, and I just lost it. I'm like, what? I just said, "No, you go in and you get checked. And if you don't do it for you, you do it for your wife and your kids. You do it so you can watch your son live out his dream, and you can walk your daughter down the aisle, and you can grow old as the person that you love, because you know, my Philip, he can't do that anymore because he's home and he's dying. No, you go in and you get checked, and you bend over and you take it like a man." He's like, "Whoa, I'm usually yelling at your kid on the ice like that." Fast forward a couple months, Phil's passed away of prostate cancer. We're back in Canada and watching one of Austin's hockey games, and Coach Jeff comes up and gives us his condolences, but then he leans in and he kind of whispers and he looks around and he says, "Jen, I went in and I got checked, bent over and took it like a man. And you know, when the doctor was putting on his glove, I said, 'Doc, I'm doing this for a woman, and it's not my wife.'" Like, a lot of information there.
How many of you guys have children? Raise your hand.
Whoa.
You guys would do anything for your kids, right? "Hey, Dad, will you teach me how to drive?" "Hey, Mom, will you help me pick out my prom dress?" "Hey, Dad, will you help me pick out my new cool shoes?" "Hey, Dad, will you watch me as I play my first NHL hockey game?" "Hey, Dad, will you walk me down the aisle when I get married?" Just like you guys, My dad would have done anything for Austin and I. But he can't do any of those things anymore because he's not here.
When we hold our crystal ball and we ask that infamous question, what do you want? We see a man putting on a bow tie. He picks up the phone. He says, I read your book, we saw you speak, got checked, went to the doctor, found out I had cancer, got treated, and I'm a survivor. I'm about to walk my daughter down the aisle. And I had to reach out and say thank you for making a difference. If I could give this book to one person, just one person, I would give it to my Phil 12 years ago, because I believe he'd be sitting here in this room as a Genius Network member if he knew the stories in this book.
Now, this message is not just for the women or for the men. It's also for the women. And you know what? Right now, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So yes, I want you to live large and make magical memories. But I also want you to live long and take care of those memories. Health #1 for everyone in this room.
We're here today to share our stories in hopes of encouraging you to take action, to not only continue to live large as entrepreneurs, but to live long and value health #1 and get checked.
And there's actually something you can do right now to add time to your life and your loved one's life. So I actually want you guys to take out your phones.
Seriously.
Seriously, I want you to do this. And in the past 10 minutes, you've been thinking about someone. And it might have been yourself, which is totally okay. But I want you to send this message to that person. I love you. Live long, get checked, and
Bend over and take it like a man.
What other lifestyle things help enhance just overall health that are absolute musts? Like
Okay.
what are just the things you really are going to need?
So this is where, you know, when I was sitting watching you interview Ariana the other day, I am 100% in agreement. Actually, I think the #1 thing you can do for your health, bar anything else, is sleep. If I had to pick one thing, it'd be sleep. Because one poor night of sleep, you're going to be hungrier, you're more insulin resistant, your cortisol's higher, you're going to crave more sugar. I always say you're hungrier, not for salmon, you know, right?
Oh,
Your
yeah. No, when
serotonin's low.
you want to eat crappy food.
Right, and
Yeah.
it starts this bad cycle, because then you want to have the latte and the muffin, and then your energy drops, and all of a sudden you're having caffeine all day long, and then you can't sleep, so then you've got to like hit yourself with sleeping pills or alcohol. Then you feel like crap the next day, and it just like boom, 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 boom. So good sleep habits are huge. Stress tolerance. I hate the idea of stress management, because you tell a stressed person they have to manage their stress and they want to slap you, right? But especially from being in the hospital with a near-death experience with a child, it really became clear to me that stress tolerance is everything. And so there's so many things that you can do to teach your body how to tolerate higher and higher levels of stress, which the more successful you want to be, the better you better be at tolerating stress, right? So it's not, most of us can't get the stress out of our lives, so we have to learn how to handle it better. One of the best ways to learn how to handle it better is burst training. So for exercise, I don't believe in endurance exercise at all.
So you don't go for long distance
Never.
runs?
Zero. I was a vegan endurance athlete in my 20s. I was about 10% body fat higher, very angry. Not happy, angry, right? So no, I only do burst style cardio training or HIIT training, which means let's say if I was going to go out for a run, I'd walk first and I'd sprint all out for 30 seconds, walk it off for a minute, sprint again for 30 seconds, and do that to accumulate 4 to 8 total minutes of bursting 3 days a week. And then I do a lot of resistance training. And I'm ready for you whenever you want a rematch in the gym.
Yeah,
I know you've got some work to do before we do that.
You're so sweet to me. I really appreciate that. And on video, even.
I know, I get that. And you're just now. You're like, I don't want to like go back at it.
I'm going to embarrass you in the
sweet.
gym. We're going to videotape this.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do. Okay,
Yeah,
that's it.
But
We just threw
if
the
I do, what is that
gauntlet
going to
down now.
accomplish for me? I mean, I'll just still look like a jerk. I mean, what?
Yeah. See,
No,
I'm in
were-
the total win-win.
Do you
chair
mind
here.
talking about how old you are?
I am 51.
Yeah, 51. See, and
I am better at 51 than I was at 40. And I believe I'll be better at 55 because, you know, we just keep learning more. There's so much that you can do. But honestly, burst style training raises growth hormone. The most aging thing you can do, eat sugar and run a lot. and be stressed out. You know, it's like I have like a lot of stress in my life. I'm totally happy, and I've learned how to manage, deal with that stress, tolerate that stress. Bringing a kid out of a brain injury is a stressful situation.
Well, so you remember Hugh Downs? Like Hugh's now 93, 94. I interviewed him when he was 87, and I asked him about stress, and he had like one of the world records of most time on broadcast television. On 2020 for years, and he said there's a big difference between stress and distress. He's like, we grow from stress. He's like, if you work out, you're going to actually, that's how you build. Distress tears you down, and so I think in a lot of ways when I hear you say that
it's just like it's like weight training for your brain. And then I know that I'm going to get better because now I'm finally have given in. You have pummeled me with this. And I'm starting TM, so I'm going to start meditating. And again, I look at health as a journey, and if you don't address all this stuff, it's like a giant snowball picking up speed going down a hill. But if you address this, you can totally level it out or bring it up. And so I believe we can be at our best 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond, and you just keep looking at the habits that you can put in. Right? So my next one will be meditation. I'm always looking at anything I can do to get an edge, and there's so many more things out there.
Yeah, people, I mean, even as we're sitting here videotaping, there's a couple that are in the room that actually are in the float pod business, where you actually float. They manufacture float pods. They have a company called True Rest, and so there's lots of ways that you can handle stress.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to try that, because if I could, maybe that'll become my new meditation. Maybe I can meditate in the float pod.
You can.
Think about that. It's a 2-for-1.
Exactly.
I could take some vitamin C, lower my cortisol, then go in the float pod and meditate.
Exactly.
That's it.
And in all seriousness, yeah, those are great practices.
All right, so we have a lot. I think the supporter there said we had 90 slides, so we got a lot of stuff to cover. So I'm going to talk pretty quick. Today we're going to talk about how inflammation, the one campaign that will cost you $11 million in your life. Who wants to learn about that? Anybody want to learn about how they can save or make $11 million? Come on, let's see your hands. Okay, great. So my name is Dr. Thad Gallo. We're going to talk about inflammation. What is your score? Why should you care? What is it costing you, and what does it cost? What is it coming from? And then ultimately, how to reverse inflammation. Why am I up here talking to you today? Well, when my parents first moved up from Southern California, that's the property that they bought. No amenities, no electricity, no running water, and my parents put a tent on a piece of property. In the middle slide there, they bought a chainsaw and started building a house. My mother went from working from sunup to sundown to full disability, which is what my life was like growing up. In her 40s, she was on pain so bad, she was in pain so bad, she was on full disability and bedridden. I know a good day for her was she could go down and check the chickens. So it was the first and only time in her life that she thought the family would be better off without her. So that's what I grew up with. And when my brother and I would come home from school, there'd be a little placard that said there'd be a number on it. And depending on where that number was her pain scale and whether you could talk to mom or not that day. Well, fast forward. The physician said, sorry, there's nothing we can do. You're going to spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. That's me in the pink. I know, very fashionable. We're sitting there tearing out the kitchen, getting ready for a wheelchair-type kitchen. So, of course, that was not the life that we wanted. She found someone that worked with her on how to reduce chronic inflammation when all the other doctors failed her. Now she's 67 years young. She's our lead health coach. She started running 5K races. Her physicians are amazed, and she's on 0 medication. So does this, yes, a round of applause for my mother, my inspiration. Does this look like someone that should be in a wheelchair? Of course not. I love the middle picture. I think the dog looks more tired than she does. So, of course, it's kind of like from 0 to hero, wheelchair to marathon runner. So why are we doing this? Well, that prompted me to go into work in natural health care, to where we work with people to reverse chronic disease in 1 to 8 months so they can reduce or completely eliminate all chronic medications, or if you want to prevent or reverse disease. So because, of course, it takes a new perspective. You're never going to see commercials like this again. And, of course, 7-Up would go under if they ever ran an ad like this again. So we know traditional medicine thinks that we're born with too many body parts and under-medicated because they treat symptoms. If you step on a dog's tail and it barks, you don't put a muzzle on it. So getting to the root cause, we know inflammation is the driver. This could be pretty much any graph. It's diabetes, but we know we're getting sicker as a nation following mainstream advice. Because we know in about 2002, the AHA and the CDC issued a joint statement saying that inflammation is the biggest driver of chronic disease, both short and long term. There's two types. A clinical acute inflammation is when you sprain your ankle. We're all familiar with that. But what we're talking about is subclinical. That's the lowest grade. It's a smoldering irritant that we all deal with, and that's what drives the disease process. So what is your inflammation score? If you're taking notes, write this down. HSCRP. How many people have ever heard of HSCRP, current clients not included? So maybe about 10%. HSCRP is considered the single best indicator for chronic low-grade inflammation, and we know that since about 2002, you should be having that tested because it's more important than cholesterol in predicting future chronic disease as well as heart disease. So here's a question. What percentage of heart attacks occur in people with normal cholesterol? 50% is absolutely right. Who said that? Wonderful. 50%. You can quiz your physician on that. You can look up line because we know that in the other 50%, and pretty much about 90% of all heart attacks occur with people with chronic low-grade inflammation. Like we've learned in some of these previous talks, that it starts very young. And why are we talking about this? Because, of course, you are your biggest asset. So quiz your physician. Why should you care? Because inflammation drives all chronic diseases, and it's a big component, whether it's acne, allergies, asthma, cancer, chronic fatigue, weight gain, of course, and low mental clarity and low cognition. So we know that it drives Alzheimer's, etc. So what is inflammation costing you? Well, we know that the U.S. spends almost the largest amount on healthcare, and we're one of the worst. And we know that just by the time you are by the time that you retire, you spent $250,000 out of pocket. So there's your $250,000 idea, Joe. But what are the total costs of inflammation and inflammatory diseases? Well, we know surgeries, and the average American has 7 to 9 surgeries. So what's it cost you to miss a day of work? Or what's it cost you to miss a day with your family or quality of life? Because we know that inflammation drives not only the quality, but the quantity of life that you have. And of course, dying prematurely, we know that if you do reduce inflammation, you extend your life. So there are 15 years of 25K groups, times your 250,000, that's 11. There's your 11 million right there. But ultimately, what is a day worth to you in terms of lost productivity? Not only for you, but for your team. I know a lot of us measure quarterly performance, daily performance, but where are you in terms of monitoring yourself and your internal performance and your internal health? Because we know that when you get into retirement, a lot of financial advisors say, well, a third of your retirement is related to, the first third is spending your money on enjoying things that you want to do, and the last 2/3 is spending it on healthcare. So if you're spending the last 2/3 of your retirement dollars on healthcare, how's your quality of life? And we know that those are inflammatory related diseases. So are you spending your health to gain wealth? Only then to turn around and spend your wealth to reclaim your health. Well, where does it come from? Well, of course, there's no secret here about who is healthier. I know Homer, he's not the epitome of health. His wife is having to vacuum him to keep him healthy. So a couple of things that would cause inflammation. Of course, this young child that sadly is inflamed because we know as a nation, the obesity rates are getting higher and higher. That's one of the biggest sources. This is the obesity rate started in 1986. You can see that we have to add in new categories in 91, 92 or 98, and 2000. 2006, and the last blue state, gone. So we know that we are getting sicker as a nation following mainstream advice. So there's a term called genetic discordance, that you wouldn't feed your lion a bale of hay and you wouldn't feed your horse a steak. So if this looks really good to you, you're inflamed. So what is the optimal diet to reverse inflammation? Is there an alternative? Well, we know that about 72% of our calories that we consume promote inflammation. 72% of what you put in your mouth is promoting inflammation. So what is one of the biggest ones? Well, dairy, I would agree that is one of the biggest inflammatories. It's a poor source of calcium, vitamin D, protein. It actually raises your insulin. There's some suggestions that the hormones will actually not be destroyed by heat, cooking, or pasteurization or digestion and can be absorbed into the bloodstream, potentially disrupting human physiology. And we know that lactose intolerance, just for vitamin D, I know a lot of people say, oh, I get my vitamin D from my milk. Well, how many gallons of milk would you have to drink to get the same amount of 20 minutes in the sun? Any guesses? Well, of course, because it's the highest one up there, right? Good job. So we know that just vitamin D, by getting the proper vitamin D levels, you can reduce your risk of all cancers combined because it reduces your inflammation and cell gap, tight junctions, etc., by 77%. So just getting your vitamin D levels appropriate because we know that these foods, well, have you ever tried to approach a wild animal or thought about milking it? So we know that these foods, dairy, cannot be consumed on a regular basis because it promotes inflammation. How many people have heard of gluten? Raise your hand if you've heard of gluten. So we know that gluten is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to grains, because we know grains contain all of these other inflammatory issues in there, and they're indigestible in the raw form, which is why you see corn the next morning. So for those of you that are chemical buffs, you can go ahead and memorize this. At the bottom, those are the chemicals that drive disease. So, of course, I don't expect anyone to memorize this, but that's where medications work, is at the bottom of the slide. At the top of the slide, you see where it says grains, flours, corn, seeds, oils, etc., arachidonic acid. That's exactly, you're eating yourself into inflammation when you eat those foods, because this slide is actually designed and put out by pharmacology companies that that understand this, which is why they make millions. So people say, yeah, but I eat pretty healthy, Dr. Gal. And I say, well, if that was the case, you wouldn't be talking to me or on medications. So let's talk about how moderation doesn't work. Because if you eat one bowl of Cheerios, you need to eat 21 salads to balance out the inflammation in one bowl of Cheerios. What about bacon? I know I'm probably breaking a lot of hearts here. 30 salads. What about medium serving of fries, 55 salads, a serving of chips, 75 salads, 2 eggs, 100 salads. Now that's not omega-3 eggs, that's regular eggs. And of course, if you have a wonderful soybean oil dressing, you need 256 salads to balance out the inflammation. So add up one day. Of course, when you put all that together, we're going to be at 537 salads, and then we didn't even make it to dinner yet. So that's to reduce your inflammation. That shows you how quickly you can promote disease in your body if you're not careful. So we know that grains, dairy, because those are the issue, those are the big ones. There's a whole list of other ones out there, but those are some of the biggest offenders, because to defy death, debilitation, decay, inflammation is not only one campaign that'll cost you $11 million, but it will cost you ultimately your life. Because ultimately, what can you do to reverse inflammation? Why is it important? How much is $1 billion worth to you if you only have minutes left on the clock? And how much are you spending for your time, energy, and focus on your number one asset? And where are you looking at for your numbers? So I encourage you to make the rest the best. So what to do? Well, here's some action steps. Pick one of the tests that I recommend. Have an HSCRP test done twice a year. Ideally, you want to be less than 1. If you're 1 to 3 or above 3, you better worry, because that doubles your risk of Alzheimer's, future chronic diseases, and inflammatory conditions, arthritis, swelling, etc. Get a vitamin D test. Ideally, you want to be between 80 and 100, and you want to get that tested twice a year as well. Increase colorful vegetables, non-starchy, increase lean, wild game, and protein, and as well as supplements. Figure out what you can do to reverse inflammation, get your life back, and ultimately take care of your best asset, which is you and your health.
Thank you, dear.
So hi, everyone. Yes, so I am Robin Farmian. Give you a little more background on me. You heard I'm a serial entrepreneur. I work on the really big problems like sleep apnea and tissue engineering. Now, the reason I decided to become an entrepreneur is because as a teenager, I was misdiagnosed. Ended up resulting in 43 hospitalizations and 6 major surgeries. Now, when you're facing surgery, and especially when you're a kid, right? You go from hospital system to hospital system looking for the very best doctors out there. But none of my doctors ever looked at me and said, you know what, Robin? Let's hold off on these surgeries because you're so young and technology is moving so quickly, it could provide some solutions in the near future. None of my doctors ever looked at me and said, you know what, Robin? Technology is hope. But technology is hope. In fact, had digital health IT and just the sheer amount of information we now have access to as patients existed when I was a teenager, I most likely would not have lost 3 organs. At the age of 26, this is 7 years after they had taken out my entire large intestine, my doctors were telling me I was cured. But I wasn't. And I was in extreme pain. So they eventually put me up to 80 milligrams a day of methadone, gigantic dose of opiates. And they were telling me my next step would be a morphine pump surgically implanted into my spine. I was like, are you kidding me? I was 26 years old. And they were telling me that was going to be essentially the rest of my life. So I went home that night and I fired my entire healthcare team. Every single one of them. I rebuilt it from the ground floor, got diagnosed correctly, off all the methadone, right? Put on a drug called Remicade, and within 24 hours of that first dose, after a 13-year misdiagnosis, I went into remission overnight. So that's what I'm up here to talk to you about, how the convergence of exponential technology is really empowering what I like to call the healthcare consumer to be not only a key decision maker, but really the one in the driver's seat. It's also disrupting this whole victim-God scenario that we have had in healthcare up until now. Now, I'm not calling patients victims, but when you are a patient, you do feel victimized. You feel victimized by your health insurance bills, by the hospital bills, by the doctor's waiting room, and mostly by your own body. And with the exception of a couple of surgeons that I know, doctors aren't really God. And we've been going in there and expecting them to fix us in our 8-minute doctor visits. That's not realistic now, is it? Right? We are entering a perfect storm of technological advancements, really enabling what I like to call the era of the patient. Now, in my book and in my 60-minute talks, I do deep dives into these technology areas. Today, I'm going to give you some high learnings. So medical science. You heard from Peter Diamandis, or as Joe calls him, Peter Diamonds, yesterday, and talking about genetic sequencing. Not only is it on the exponential trend, but it is dramatically outperforming Moore's law. Now, let me tell you why this is important for patients, because it means personalized medicine, a treatment plan based on the individual versus the one-size-fits-all model that we have had in healthcare up until now. And it's also catalyzing this, the microbiome. I want to raise a hands in the room. How many people know about the microbiome? Wow, that is the most I have ever seen in any conference raise their hands, so good job for being informed patients here. So the microbiome are the colonies of bacteria, fungi, and viruses that live in and on our bodies. Symbiotic relationship, we need them, they need us, right? Now, let me give you a couple of scenarios. Imagine, I have Crohn's disease. I bank my microbiome when I'm not feeling well, just to get a transplant back when I am. Same way you would bank umbilical cord blood. And if you think about it, we are less than 50% human cells. We have not been taking that into account in medicine all of these years. I'll give you one other scenario that blows my mind every time I say it. Imagine some of these diseases that we thought were genetic, in fact, turn out to be infectious through the microbiome. Which brings me to Genius Network tip number 1, medical awareness. Knowing what is out there and coming down the pipeline is a huge advantage for everybody in this room. Healthcare professionals are trained in silos. I bet if you went to the majority of your doctors, they would not know anything about the microbiome. But I think it's one of the most disruptive things to happen to medicine in 100 years. All right, so let's talk a little bit about software. You heard about AI yesterday with Peter. Let me show you what is happening in medicine. This is IBM Watson. Look at those stats. Can a human being do that? No, I don't think so. That's just what it studied about 5 years ago when I went to medical school. Combine that with the fact that there are over 10,000 known human diseases. How is a physician supposed to keep up in their sheer amount of information and research coming at them in their individual silo, let alone medicine as a whole, right? AI absolutely can. And Watson has opened up their API for anyone to use. Whether you are an entrepreneur or a Fortune 500 company, you have access to using Watson. Not only that, but they just recently opened up for free their quantum computing section. So if you own a company, you have access to IBM's quantum computers. Now, why would they do that? Besides, obvious revenue stream when you're talking about the Watson side. Because AI improves more quickly the more it's used. Now, for patients, this is a really big deal because that means we can use companies that have access to one of the world's most important and powerful computers, right? And AI in mental health care space, wow, this is already outperforming therapists and psychiatrists. I'll give you one example. Ellie, it's decision support software for PTSD and depression. Right? Not only does Ellie analyze the responses to queries like a normal therapy visit, right? But tone of voice, facial expression, and even the subtle way you string words together over a period of time, whether that is days, weeks, months, or years. Human beings can't do that. That's the kind of app I want running in the back of my iPhone. All right, so let's talk a little bit about hardware. Sensors are becoming ubiquitous. In fact, by 2019, it is expected that the wearable tech and sensor market is going to be a $50 billion a year industry. Massive opportunity space, right, for entrepreneurs. But the cool thing about technology is it makes things seamless. We are seeing things go way beyond the Fitbit that everyone knows about. Things like socks that measure gait for neurodegenerative diseases, compression shirts with clinical grade EKG data, subcutaneous, meaning under the skin, sensors that are epidermal, with meaning tattooed on, even an entirely new category called ingestibles, where we're putting sensors on pills. Now, what this does, it brings me to Genius Network tip number 2, metricize. Just like in business, if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. When you start measuring things like your biometric activity, it gives you the opportunity to improve. And 3D printing. So as you heard, we can do about 260,000 different colors in one print job. We can now print over 300 different materials. Really cool in healthcare, we are seeing titanium body parts, casts with holes in them for scratching, even under $5 3D printed stethoscopes. And this is Amy Mullins. She is a double limb amputee, right? She's lost both of her legs at an early age. She doesn't think of herself as disabled. She has 12 sets of legs. If she wants to be 6 feet tall one day, she is. She wants to be 5'6", she is. If she wants to run faster than every single person in this room, well, she's already done that, right? Brings me to Genius Network tip number 3, opportunity. What in your life are you looking at that you should be looking at as an opportunity? I've been in pretty extreme pain every day of my life for 27 years. I do not use it as a crutch. I do not use it as an excuse. I use it as a catalyst to change medicine. And infrastructure. So just like with banking and education, infrastructure and content are separating. You are no longer constrained to a physical venue just to receive healthcare. In fact, you are not constrained to a physical venue to do just about anything from your job to your personal relationships. Which brings me to my last tip, Genius Network tip number 4, be the CEO, right? And I like to compare this to the CEO of a corporation. I mean, you're not an expert in engineering, marketing, finance, operational management, right? You hire the best. They do their jobs, report back to you, and together, as a team, you decide on a direction for the company to go into. But as CEO, you are the one who is ultimately responsible that that vision is carried out and the company overall is successful. So I ask, why should being a patient be any different? Technology is really enabling us to have healthcare when we want it, where we want it, how we want it received. So I want to leave you with this thought. Now that you're the CEO of your own healthcare team, and I mean every single person in this room, you are now the CEO of your own healthcare team, how are you going to start to change your behavior today? Thank you.
You know what? I love this too. I mean, this is where I try to be sneaky with people, is you sell people what they want and give them what they need. Because I think, how many of you thumbs up are finding this very valuable, right? Now, obviously, because of all the comments, you'll have to read them later, Sasha, and I know it's hard to like focus and read comments at the same time. That's a good way to keep yourself distracted. That being said, it just reminds me right now with what's going on, how important it is to have these sort of discussions. And you know, because a lot of people get so caught up in their businesses that they are not, I mean, we are I go back to the $1 million racehorse. You know, if you had $1 million racehorse and every time that horse ran a race and won, you'd win $1 million. You wouldn't shove fast food down its throat, sleep deprive it, overwork it. You'd give it the best food, the best nutrition, the best trainers, the best nature. There's all these other things that you know could be missing. So, in your own life, what have been the 2 or 3 most important things you've done to maintain and optimize your health?
All right, great question. So there's so many, but you know, I'll try to narrow it down to 3. So one thing is time in nature. I think that is very overlooked, super, super powerful, and you know, when possible, accessible to all of us. And we should prioritize spending time in nature, particularly time in nature. I want to emphasize in nature, not darting through nature, not running through it on a trail. And even if you do a trail, take some time to sit with nature and feel the tone, feel the sounds, you know, feel the earth, you know, get your feet on the earth. That's super, super important, very, very overlooked. And I think it's where some of our best ideas come from, unlocks our brain. So really simple fun fact, if I stare at an image of nature on my screen, that image is flat. No matter how realistic or high resolution it is, the details in that image are completely flat because my screen is flat. But when I look at a forest, there's dimensionality to it. And that dimensionality gives nature its fractal properties, which unlocks our brain. Our brain is a fractal. And if you don't know what that means, you know, it's beyond look it up. It's super, super powerful. And that's a whole different conversation. But nature heals our brain unlike anything else. It heals our body, unlike anything else. We have, you know, if you look at a tree, the branches of a tree look exactly like our lungs because we're built using the same mathematical equation. So healing has to occur through nature. One of the most powerful lessons I learned through nature, and this is relevant to all of us, and what I teach my clients is that your health is like the trunk of a tree. Right? Nature has billions of years of experience on us. And so if we observe it as a metaphor, it teaches us so many things. Your health and you are the trunk of a tree. The branch of a tree can never grow bigger than the trunk. If it tries to, what happens? The tree splits in half. And most of us are trying to build our businesses bigger than we are. And when that happens, our lives, our relationships, all these things start to split in half. If you focus on you and focus on your own personal growth and grow the trunk, then all the branches can grow bigger. So that's why health to me is so important. Our mindset, our health, our self-care rituals, how we reflect that love back onto others is such an important part of our existence. And I've learned a lot of these lessons just by spending time in nature. And when you're in nature, you're going to unlock your right brain. Pay attention to patterns, colors, shapes, zoom in on things, actually get close to the tree and look at it, because that will unlock these patterns in your brain that haven't been, that you can't unlock by staring at a screen. Another thing is that I do personally are incantations and chants. So the one that I specifically do is called the Hanuman Chalisa, which is a Hindu chant, and there's thousands of different versions of it, but it's 40 verses, and it basically is the scripture of all self-development. So Hanuman is the monkey god. If you ever studied Hinduism, he's a monkey and he's a man kind of mixed together, and he is the eternal servant of God. He is God's breath. That's how he's described. And so this chant, it basically describes his attributes and characteristics, but it's sung in such a way where the vibration actually creates that reality for you. So this is why, just a little side tangent, the English language is a very interesting language. It's one of the most difficult languages to learn because semantically English is a very broken language. So think about the word buy. The word buy can be used 3 different ways, right? If I have a button that says buy now, that could also mean buy now. Right? So the English language is very, very ambiguous and semantically broken. So sometimes other languages like Sanskrit are perfect languages where the vibration of the word actually creates the matter that's associated with that word. So the language in which you speak or think actually makes a difference in the reality that you're going to create. I know that's kind of a difficult concept to grasp immediately, but it does make a big difference. So when you can speak or think in a language that has zero ambiguity to it, you're more likely to create the reality that you're trying to create. So that's called the Hanuman Chalisa, and I can certainly share a link. You don't even have to, it's so powerful that you actually don't even have to understand what you're saying, because the vibration from the words actually creates those characteristics in you. So it's pretty powerful. A lot of famous people, Barack Obama used to carry a little Hanuman in his pocket. So he was an avid follower of Hanuman. And then the last thing I would say, if you're giving me 3, is be a kid again. So be curious. Children love to play with things. They approach things with curiosity. They have a beginner's mind. And if you could do that right now, especially, I think that's a very valuable skill set. Let go of some of the preconceived notions, some of the limiting beliefs that we have. One of the limiting beliefs could be, I've been sick for 5 years. It's going to take me 5 months to get better. No. I mean, think about this. A question I ask my clients is, how many days into your vacation do you feel amazing? And they're like, 3 days. I'm like, well, there you go. You can feel better in 3 days if you want to, right? It's not your body that's broken. It's not your body that's the problem. Stop blaming the body. Stop testing it, poking it, prodding it, and assuming that it's not doing its job. You've got to create the right environment, the right thoughts, the right circumstances in order for it to heal. I mean, everything that you've done up to your life, up to this point, and I know I've made a lot of stupid decisions, hasn't killed me. And that's how resilient we are. There's nothing more resilient than our bodies.
What are the biggest obstacles as people age that get in their way because the slow rot, right?
I think they do the wrong thing. I mean, really the biggest obstacles is people do the wrong things. They reach for the wrong lever. So if you want to, peak performance aging in a sentence, everything you need to know about peak performance aging, if you want to rock till you drop, you have to engage on a regular basis in challenging social and creative activities that demand, and all these words mean something, so we can talk about what they mean, dynamic, deliberate play, and take place in novel outdoor environments. That's the biggest lever we have at our disposal. I'll say it again, we want to engage in novel, creative, and social activities, novel, challenging, creative, and social activities that demand dynamic, deliberate play and take place in novel outdoor environments.
What about shaming your younger friends, like Joel, when he goes, we'll repeat it and then I'll say,
challenging, creative, and social activities that demand dynamic, deliberate play and take place in novel outdoor environments. And we can define what those terms mean in a second and why they're important, but I'll let you ask his question.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say, so I've been on Joel's houseboat with him. He skis probably every weekend. He has a house.
But look at Genius Network. This is a challenging social and creative activity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, dynamic just means all 5 categories of functional fitness. So I said we have to train all our skills. What are those skills? Strength, stamina, agility, balance, and flexibility. Those are the 5 skills we have to train. And there are very precise numbers for this. The WHO, the World Health Organization, we need 150 to 300 minutes of moderate to big, this is for peak performance aging, not for healthy aging or successful aging, for peak performance aging, meaning you really want to perform at your best. It's 150 to 300 minutes of stamina training a week, so aerobic training a week, 2 strength days a week, 3 balance, flexibility, and agility days a week. So if he's skiing, if he's coming to Genius Network, like he's hitting all the boxes, I would guess.
Oh yeah, and I went water skiing with him, and the frickin' guy is amazing. And he's been, you started water skiing after, like at 50, right? At 50. Yeah. And he does it.
My friend Rebecca
weekly.
Rush, who has most of the endurance mountain bike, they call her the Queen of Pain.
Yeah.
She didn't start mountain biking professionally till her 30s, and she didn't really start winning her awards till her 40s.
Wow.
And she just won the human-powered Iditarod at 54.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. So there you go. And I mean, look, to me, this is very inspiring. I turn 55 years old tomorrow. So, you know, we're both the same age. I think you're, yeah, thank you.
I'm a little older.
Yeah.
By like 8 months.
Yeah. So,
which could explain our overlapping taste in music.
Exactly, yeah, because we're both into punk rock and stuff. I sent him a picture. I texted him a couple days ago. Me with Henry Rollins from Black Flag when I was in my 20s when I took that picture. So you touch on some of these. If you took all of the things you know and gave someone one technique to immediately better their health, what would that one technique be?
Depends on the person, but so for a peak performance aging perspective, you start with mindset, and the next 2 things to focus on, social activities, are really crucial. So like it is, from a peak performance aging perspective, you could be morbidly obese and you're going to go farther by having regular social contact than by losing weight. Social contact is rough equivalent of quitting smoking, right? In terms of longevity and health. So social contact really, really matters. Change your mindset, and then this is a weird one. The single greatest correlate for preserving physical health and mental health is leg strength. Yeah, you know it. It's leg strength, and which is odd. But they've done all these studies on cognitive reserve and preserving brain function and leg strength. They think it's because if you lose your legs, you lose your ability to like move around and talk to people, basically. And social stuff stimulates our brain so much that we fall off a cliff without it. So that's one of the reasons, but they think there's other stuff that they just haven't found yet.
Yeah. How many of you, and Akshay knows Wes Kress? Frickin' guy, every day. This dude is like, he's a doctor of Chinese medicine. He sits in the sauna at Optimize, like, let me not fall off the bench here. And he literally sits like this for 30 minutes every day in a sauna. And I'm just like, you try doing it for like 3 minutes, your knees are like, what the hell? And just sits there, and the frickin' dude's legs, and the guy's in one of the most incredibly physically fit people because he focuses on the leg strength, which is awesome. I just wanted to show my socks too, my what's in it for them sort of. Yeah, like that, how I product placement again.
With the
socks,
it's good.
I should get you a pair.
I've got Wu-Tang Clan socks on, but you know.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Talk about your lean body coaching program, your online program, because you've done a lot of the stuff face to face. There's all different formats. So how do you do it with people now? How do you train?
Okay, so this is my legacy, right? I wanted to leave behind my life's work, and so online we replicated my clinical work online, and so everybody has their own nutritionist that's trained by me. And the first 3 months is devoted entirely on how to eat to get lean. And the final 3 months are devoted entirely to relapse prevention, how to keep the weight off. We have tons of recipes because I want to show people there is nothing you can't eat if you make it. And so at the end of the day, all of my psychological work is on there in video format. right? All the recipes are in video format. If you don't know how to cook, our coaches are there to teach you how to cook and all that kind of stuff. So all of that 40 years. Let me show you one other little thing, because it's the little things sometimes we don't know. I just want to show you a slide that we did here a while back. Raise your hand if water-packed tuna is lower in fat than oil. Just raise your hand if it is. I'm not scamming you.
Fat?
Yeah, water-packed tunas. So this is water-packed tuna and spring water. And I bought these 2 cans at the same store at the same time. And the first can, you can see 1 times 9 is 9 divided by 70 means that's about 13% fat, okay? Now, the exact same food, how many grams of fat are in the same food? 5. 5 times 9 is 45 divided by 195 is 47% fat, but oil-packed tuna is only 33. If I wasn't eating an oil to get lean, why am I eating water when it's actually higher than that which is in oil, expecting a different outcome? This represents the different times a year they catch the fish. It's been going on your whole life. So what we're doing in Lean Body Coaching is we're giving you access to information you just won't find anywhere else, because they won't put that on TV. They'd lose their advertising dollars, right? They don't want to know that stuff. But it's these little things that start to add up. I just want my clients not to give up anything, right? But just be more aware so that it can lead them down a path of just making better choices.
They both say spring water.
They are both spring water.
They're at different times of the year.
Yeah. Do you know every November through March, water-packed tuna becomes higher in fat than oil right now, this time of year, because of their migratory season?
Look at the ingredients, they're different. So one uses vegetable broth and salt, and the other one uses hydrolyzed casein.
Yeah.
You know
that's
what?
a protein, that's not a fat.
I mean, it's so obvious there's so many experts that just know the food labeling is such a bunch of propaganda horseshit. Why is it so hard to get it?
Because of lobbyists, right? Lobbyists are in Washington to protect the interest of the companies they represent over your health. Now listen to this. Are not labels the guidelines by which we have to choose to use, to get healthy foods? Mm-hmm. If the very labels themselves are deceitful and misleading, how can you ever choose healthy foods? So if you put me in that position, I'd wipe out all the loopholes. I know them all. Check out this. And this is not, these are just little things, right? It's not a big deal, okay? 0 calories, fat says 0. How many calories and grams of fat are in that container? 0. Well, if I see 0, why wouldn't I just uncap it and pour it on my baked potato? Mm-hmm. This has 900 calories and 90 grams of fat. It is perfectly okay in America to tell you that a food is fat-free when it's 100% fat. That's the law. Now, the law states that if in your serving size it has a half a gram of fat, you can just say it has none. Let me read a serving size, because I'd have to have Parkinson's disease to be able to do this. It's 1 1/4 spray, right? Just a quarter spray, right? So I'm supposed to get 905 servings out of this little thing, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah. I don't mind that you use it. I mind that you use it thinking it's one thing when it's really not. That's all we're there for, is an educational resource to help you find your way to a healthier body without deprivation and giving up.
And honestly, that's why so many marketers get lumped in, because there are some really deceptive people that use marketing to just manipulate and lie. And it's unfortunate. And grab a mic if there's anything you guys want to.
Let me grab that water.
I just want to say a couple things. First of all, what you said, I actually eat exactly like you do. So it was interesting you said that, because I went to plant-based with pescatarian with a little bit of eggs for all the same reasons, because my wife and I did a lot of research over a number of years. So we went 4 years ago to change our entire diet around. It's a pain in the ass. I mean, it's total change. But here's the thing that's not talked about, and maybe you can answer this, is what I learned about maybe 25 years ago through, I can't remember where it was exactly, but this is basically the thing about habits. And this behavioral change in this area is very, very difficult. In all areas, it's very difficult when it's substantial behavioral change. And behavioral change is based on changing habits, little things at a time. So when you make a major change, this is a major change on diet, most people think, well, a habit is formed in 14 to 21 days. There's different stuff out there. Again, that's misleading, because it's formed. A habit is not known. This is scientifically proven for 2 full years. So anytime I've made a major change in my life, and my wife and I did this 4 years ago, I said, honey, we have to do this for 730 days. We have to do this straight for 730 days, and then it'll be a permanent change in our life. If we want to get our health to where it's going to be, we go on this diet, completely changed everything, went off to a place for 3 weeks to do that, so we got all the right education besides what we already knew to do it. But we came up with the exact same diet that you came up with, and my wife was on diabetic medicine. She was also on what do you call it? Statin, thank you. And she went off both of those and still off both of those because of those dietary changes. And then our weight went down to our normal weight, and every time we do a DECA scan and everything else, we come out exactly perfectly in the middle of what we're supposed to be for our body type and everything else.
So you see the power of food.
Right. So I wanted to support you, but I also want to make sure everybody knows in this room, if you're going to make a change, any major change in your life, it's 2 years. It's not 14 days. It's not 21 days.
Actually, it's not. It's lifetime, right?
I meant to get it so it's going to stick.
But I don't see that it takes that long, right? Because here's what I'd like to see.
Well, this is statistic through the insurance industry on driving and everything else. When you see the rates, they've learned this over time, that your kid doesn't know to step on the long skinny one or the fat horizontal one when they're trying to make a decision on driving, and they make mistakes. And they found that after 2 years, all the rates come down because they've done millions of these, and that's when they know how to drive versus they have been taught how to drive. Two different, entirely different skills.
I'm not disputing that, but I got to tell you, it's not looking at how you teach somebody to make a simple change, right? So if you leave my office and I just say, listen, do you want to make those 2 little changes? Yeah, go do it. And then once those 2 changes are in place, let's make the next ones.
Right.
So it's a process. And when I watch how people change, no 2 people change at the same rate at the same time, right? But I did notice that successful people go through a series of steps. The first one is awareness, right? They become acutely aware that what they're doing is no longer working for them. But that's not enough to change, because how many people are aware they have a problem and they're still not changing, right? We heard your drug stories, right? The second step, though, is contemplation.
Hell, we haven't even got into the hookers yet. That's all.
The second step I watch successful people go is to contemplation. What you have to do is you have to think about how this change is going to affect you. Is this going to be more fun or less fun? Is this something you really think you can do in the face of socializing? Right. The next step is knowledge, and this is where I see a lot of people fail. Because they take in the wrong knowledge, every step they take going forward fails them. So if you can give people straightforward, accurate information, their success rate's going to be higher just based on that. The next step, then they move into action. They start making the changes. But this is where most people are deluded. You don't go into the final step. On average, most people go from action back to contemplation 3 or 4 or 5 times, depending on how long it's going to take them to get what they didn't learn, to go on to the final step, which is self-accountability. So I watch what successful people do. There's no mystery to me as to why they're successful. I watch what unsuccessful people do. There's no mystery as to why they aren't. I'm not disputing that research at all, but what I'm saying at the end of the day is I think we have to look at how we're educating people to make the appropriate changes if they're willing to make at the time.
And I agree with you, but
Thanks.
What I'm finding is people are coming to me after a month or 2 months at the gym trying to work out all the time or do one of these things, thinking that after a certain short period of time it's going to set in, when they don't recognize there's a lot of other elements. And I love your whole step process in that, but it's a long-term process. It's
a lifetime.
It's not short. And I think a lot of us are under this misguided, that this is just going to happen after a month or 2.
Fast, easy. But wait, that's not all.
It's at least 2 years for most people, if not longer.
Yeah, the thing is that it's really weird because we live in such an instant gratification world. It's a lot easier to get a hit by eating a pepperoni pizza than it is to go to the gym and drink water and work out.
Cook your food.
Yeah, I mean, so the more that we become a culture of instantaneous, just the more difficult it becomes psychologically. And here's the whole reason that I bring you here and talk like this and that sort of stuff is that you mentioned it, is coping. Mm-hmm. How you eat has everything to do with how you cope with life. And you may be doing a lot of wonderful things in your life. You may be reading the best books, you may be highly educated, you may even be doing your best to sleep, and you have rituals. But if you insert shitty food, infrequent eating, if you don't nurture yourself well, your ability to cope physically, psychologically, emotionally, so much of it is affected by exercise and eating. So what I'd love to do is have you give some suggestions, some things that would deliver relatively quickly so that they can, and I don't mean quickly like, oh, these are quick fixes. What I mean, so I'd love for people to be able to leave here having a paradigm shift on how they think about food and about exercise, that they could start seeing results so it literally becomes a lifetime improvement in how they operate.
I think one good way to do that is and I call this the method of simplicity. What I do is take notes in the original interview, and I would like you to write down the top 5 things you think are holding you back from getting what you say you want. What are some of them? Well, I eat out too much. I don't cook. I eat too much red meat. I eat too much fried food. I drink too much alcohol, right? I mean, whatever that list is for you. If you make that list out and you list 5 things, I would encourage you to look at that list and ask yourself which one you're ready to work on right now. Spend 2 or 3 weeks or a month just fixing that one thing before you move on to the other. I will share with you this. What the most successful clients learn is that there's one thing on that list that if you focused on, the list I just gave you, there's one thing if you focused on, it changes almost all of them. If you cook your own food and carry it, you will have massive results. I watch people fight and defend their position to remain overweight at the very same time they tell me they want to lose weight. Let me show you how that conversation will go. It could be even with drug addiction, because this is parallels so much, right?
Yeah.
I will say
honestly, I think so much of people's obesity is literally rooted in addiction.
Yeah, but unfortunately with food, you can't give it up, right? With drugs, you can get it out of your life. You can make new associations and relationships. So that's why it can be a difficult change. But I will tell you this, I will watch people fight and defend their position to remain overweight even when they say they don't want it. I will say to somebody, listen, if you just cook and carry your own food, your problem will go away. Oh, I can't cook. I don't have time for that. That point of resistance, trust me, is the area you should focus the most attention on. Wherever your points of resistance are, that's where you need the most work. And that's what we do as clinicians. We really listen to what you're saying, how you're saying it, and then try to get in there and figure out how we could help you overcome that particular resistant point.
Thank you. So when preparing for this talk today, I asked myself, what could I possibly offer in 10 minutes to my Genius Network tribe? And I heard Joe Polish's voice in my head, and I came up with ELF for health. So I want you to ask yourself, what's the most valuable asset you have in your business? What is it? It's actually you. And in more particular, it's your health. How many hours do you spend a day on your business, or working in it or on it? And how many hours are you spending on you, on your physical, your mental, and your spiritual health? Is it equal? Or even close to? I doubt it at this point. So let's define ELF for health. The E, it needs to be something easy that you choose. It needs to be simple but powerful changes that you can make in your life. The L is for longevity. Longevity here means lucrative for your business, because if you live a long, healthy life, you're going to be able to do everything that you're passionate about and get it done. And the F is for fun. That means choosing health programs that you can commit to for the long term because you actually enjoy them. Most of you know your Colby score. Do you know your health score? You've been to your doc, he says, hey, everything's fine, but you don't feel fine, or even worse, you're masking symptoms. So I would ask you to understand that we cannot see everything in a scan or a lab. Learning to listen to your body is very important. I do work with major institutions and researchers, which affords me the opportunity to have access to leading edge medical information, and I love it. And just like you run your business, we want to be first, we want to be fast, and we want to be sustainable. So we need a health plan, our plan, that is novel and enjoyable. And that brings me to 2 universal health truths. Number 1, DNA is not your destiny. Epigenetics is where it's at. What are the things that you can do that'll turn off the bad genes, turn them down, and turn up the good genes? And the second is your body's own pharmacy is not only the best molecules, it's the right molecule at the right time, in the right dosage with no side effects, and there is no medicine more powerful than what your own body produces. No medicine or biohack, it's you.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
When I work with people from all over the world, I literally work from stage 4 terminal cancers to elite athletes. What do they have in common? I find that they all need balance in these pillars of health. And I put together a questionnaire for you today so that you can assess your own pillars. Those of you who are here, they just gave you out the handout, but hold on filling it out yet. And those of you watching, just write down these 6 words: sleep, body, BM, energy, mental, and spiritual. Now I'm going to describe each one of these sections, and then I'll ask you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. So let's start with sleep. How much quality sleep are you actually getting? Is it REM? Is it deep? Do you have an aura ring? Or do you not know? So I'm going to help you. A 1, you rate yourself a 1 if you can't get to sleep and you don't stay asleep. A 10 would be you wake up in the morning, before you get your coffee, you have energy, you've had 8 hours of restorative sleep, and you continue to have energy throughout your day. So rate yourself honestly, scale of 1 to 10. Next, let's move to body. Now, this is beyond your weight and your physique and your BMI and all these things. It's not really a stat. Are you happy with your body? A 1 would be you feel and look weak and flabby, and you don't like looking in the mirror. A 10 is you love your body, it's working well, and you're taking very good care of it. Next section, BM. Yes, that stands for bowel movement, and I am going to talk about your poop today because it's very important. What is it normally? What should it look like? From your wrist to your elbow, about that long. About as big around as your wrist, in the middle of it. It should be a log. It should not be anything except for a log. It should be a medium brown color, easily pass, and it shouldn't stink very bad. So what's a 1? A 1 is stinky poo. It's short. It's not formed, or it's rabbit pellets. That's a 1. A 10, every day you are so proud of what you produced, you really wish you could show someone. Rate yourself. Energy. Are you ready to go in the morning? You wake up before that coffee, you have that energy, and you don't crash during the day or by the end of the day. A 1 is you wake up tired, you're tired all day, and then you can't get to sleep at night. That's called wired and tired. A 10 is you get caught skinny dipping at 88 years old. Yes, my 88-year-old father and his 90-year-old wife just got caught at a hot springs, and she forgot her swimsuit. So they went out when they thought nobody was there, and they got too hot in the hot springs, and they either laid down or passed out, we're not sure. But they got caught skinny dipping. They've got great energy. Rate yourself, 1 to 10. Mental state. Where's your clarity, your cognition, your focus, your memory? Number 1, you have no idea what I'm saying right now. And number 10 is you can remember the highlights of what I'm saying. You can repeat it to someone else, and you can remember my name, or at least your name. So mental, how are you doing on that? And the last category, but not the least, is your spiritual health. It's about feeling connected in a deep sense of gratitude and serenity. A number 1 is no connection. You feel alone and you wonder if it's all worth it. And a 10 is, I'm not really talking about turning water into wine. I'm talking about having the ability to, no matter what challenges are going on in your life at the moment, you have the ability to tap into something or do a process where you can feel peaceful and you feel that it's all going to be okay. So now total your score up. If you're a 0 to 11, you may need to get your will in order, and you probably won't make the annual Genius event. Really. But seriously, if you're under a 42, I suggest that you make some changes right away. If you're 58 or higher, like Joel Weldon's score, keep doing what you're doing. The big picture is no category should be under an 8, because you wouldn't ignore an 8 score for your business. And how do you choose the strategies that you want to implement? Well, nothing's going to work if it's not ELF. And there's a big difference between I should do that and I really enjoy doing that. the type of exercise, food, meditation. You've got to love it. And entrepreneurs love to experiment and try new things like bags of supplements, going for the newest novel IV or injection. I like all those things too, but you're also going for the hardest exercise program that you can possibly tolerate. So if your score is not a 10, you may be better off finding the root of the problem, what's causing it to be there, with a good diagnostician, or instead of just trying to shut off the fire alarm and keep the fire going. And I'm providing you with a handout with a few easy implementation strategies that you can try in each category. So your challenge for today, before the end of today, I want you to pick one suggestion in each category that will be ELF for you. And you can commit to it for 30 days so you can create those new healthy habits. And for Genius Network members, I'm offering a 17-minute, that was Joel Weldon's, can't be 15, it's got to be 17-minute free consult just to help you individualize your plan if you need me. You may be wondering what inspired me to become a bridge between alternative and conventional medicine. In my first semester of medical school, I was privy to a woman that the medical community had given up on. After a medical mistake that caused a massive stroke in all 4 lobes of her brain, she ended up in the intensive care unit, and all the neurologists said, she's not going to live. If she does, she will be in a vegetative state. I spent time with that patient at her bedside, and I felt something that prompted me not to give up on her. And I went outside of traditional medicine and worked with her, and she not only survived it, but she had a great quality of life with her family for over a decade. And when she left the hospital, the doctors and nurses called her the miracle lady. Now imagine how that family felt to have her for 12 more years, good years. I know this because that woman was my mother, best teacher I had. And that experience taught me early in my medical career that the power of the human vital force is is something more powerful than any of the other things that you can learn or do. And that the human spirit cannot be measured or explained by modern medicine. I had many years, good quality years with my mother because of the shift I made. It worked for her, works for my patients, and I know it will work for you. And my best advice to you is do not ignore your symptoms. The excuse of, oh, I'm just getting older is not acceptable. I have 90-year-olds still going strong mentally and physically, and my golfing, world traveler, skinny dipping dad is a perfect example. And Joel Weldon, in our group, can probably still water ski circles around most of you. That's the way we're supposed to age. So now, empower yourself. Choose some new habits. And then, as my Southern daddy would say, get her done. So don't wait. Now's the time, and get her done.
Okay, I hope you found that video awesome and useful. So if you want to get a free copy of my book, I want you to click here. And if you want to watch some more videos that'll be useful and awesome, click here. Go ahead. They're over here. Do it now. Come on. Thank you. Watch them.